Welcome back to Mastering Programming. In today's episode, we'll be going over if statements, while statements, and for in loop statements. Obviously, these are not the examples that I'll be explaining, but I just wanted to show you what each of them are so you can get a better understanding on what we'll be explaining in this tutorial. Without further talking, let's get into it. Episode of Mastering Programming. I hope you guys enjoyed my new intro, and without further talking, let's get into it. So as you can see here, I already created an array which we'll be using in our examples in this tutorial, and I also created a variable I with a value of 2 and a variable E with a value of 1. To start us off, I will start by creating a simple if statement, and all I'm going to say is if I is greater than E, and inside here I'm going to say print your first condition is true. So let's try understand this code and then we'll go further from there. So how if statements work is that they allow you to write a condition inside here and then you write code inside of here. And Swift will read your condition. If your condition is true, it will execute the statement inside of the bracket. So right now, if you run this, our statement will be executed, our code will be executed, and it will say your first condition is true, and that's because Swift checked if I is greater than E. Is 2 greater than 1? Yes it is. Let's print this out. Now what will happen if both these are equal to 1? So if this condition is no longer true and we try run this, we will not get any errors, except nothing will actually happen because Swift checks if I is greater than 2, it realizes that it's not, and so it doesn't actually end up doing anything. It doesn't need to go further than this line. In order to tackle this, all we need to do is simply give it another condition, and this time we'll say else if I plus E is equal to 2, we want you to say your second condition is true. So now let's run this and then we're going to explain what happened right here. Exactly, it said your second condition is true. Here's why. So Swift checked if I is greater than E, and obviously that's false because I is equal to 1 and E is equal to 1, and then it checked if there's another condition, and there is. So it checked if this condition is true. So is I plus E equal to 2? Yes it is. Alright, we're going to execute the following code. Now what happens if neither of these conditions are true? So to give that a go, let's just put 9 and let's run this. Nothing happens. Exactly the same as when we had one if statement. It will happen when we have 2, and it will happen if we have 50. Now to tackle this, all we need to do is come here and say else print none of your conditions are true. And an else statement will allow this to run if none of your if statements are true. So let's run this and see what will happen. And this time it says none of your conditions are true. So something did get executed, although neither of these conditions were true. And that's because else does not require any statements, any conditions. It will simply work if the previous conditions are not met. So that's it for if statements. And next we're actually going to be creating a for loop. So for loops are actually one of my favorite things to do, and to create them all you need to do is just type in for, and then you can say name in names and say print name. So let me explain to you what happened here. For, it's just how you use it, simply like if, and then name. This can be anything you want. It can be X, it can be Y, it can be Z, or it can be name. I usually make it something that's like common sense to how you're going to be using it. For example, I want to go over the names, so I said for name in names, and what this will do is it will check for every character in our list, or sorry, in our array called names. What we want you to do is print name. So let's run this and see what happened. And indeed, that's exactly what happened. Swift ran over every single object we have in our array and it printed it straight away. Now let's see what we can do with this. Let's say, sorry for that, let's say we want to extract a particular object from our array. What we can do is we can include an if statement inside our for loop. And let me just, doesn't look good. And let's come here and say for name in names, if name is equal to, let's say, Monica, print this name is a nice name. So let's see what will happen here. So all what we did is we created a for loop. We iterated over every single object inside of this array, and we said if the name that we're over right now is equal to Monica, print this name is a nice name. Now this code, this if statement, will be checked for every single object. It checks, is the name equal to David? No, so we're not gonna run anything. Is the name equal to Chabelle, Pierre, Andrew, or Sienna? No. If it's equal to Monica, however, we can say this name is a nice name. Now let's do something more funny. We can always come here, for example, and say Chabelle, and we can say to exclamation mark and equal sign. And what this if statement now does is that it says if name is not equal to Chabelle, say this is a nice name. So let's run this and see what will happen. And it printed this is a nice name for every single name except for Chabelle. Now obviously this might not be clear, so to show you, let me say this name is a nice name, and I'm just gonna make it clear what name we're actually talking about by saying name. So let's see what will happen if we run this. And it says this name is a nice name, David, Pierre, Andrew, Sienna, and realize how Chabelle is not here because we said if that name is not equal to Chabelle, print this. If not, don't do it. So if it is Chabelle, don't do anything. If it's not Chabelle, print this out. Now obviously we can use this for anything pretty much. So we can say, let's say you just want the names, you want to filter through this, and you want to find, you have an object full of names, and you want to know where the object, if the array contains the object Pierre, for example. So we're going to come here and we're going to say Pierre. I'm going to put this as equal because we're not sure if the object, if our array contains that name or not. So all we can do is come here, write the statement, and now we'll say Pierre. So we actually, better than that, we can say print true. And now if Pierre is actually existent within our array names, it will print out true. Now like I said, you can always come here and say exclamation mark, and you can say let's put in Josh, for example. And notice how we don't have Josh in our array. So let's run this, and it will, oh yeah, so it printed true for every other name except for, I just want to show you. So it printed true for every other name, but it didn't print Josh. So what happened here is it pretty much said, all right, we're going to go over, if the name is Josh, we're going to print true, but if the name is not Josh, we're going to print true, and then we're going to say the name. So this is for loops. You can actually use for loops within a range, so I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Let me remove this so it doesn't cause any errors. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to say for, let's say, numbers in, we already have that, so say for number, and we can say in, and then we can say 1 to 5, print out number times number. So let's see how this actually works. Did you mean this? I did mean 3 dots. So as you can see here I generated a range from 1 to 5, and all I did is say for every single number between from 1 to 5, including those two numbers, print out that number times itself. So obviously 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, and so on. Now we can actually, let's say you wanted to say all the numbers from 1 to just under 5, so from 1 and 4, but not from 1 to 5, but not including 5, you can use this less than, and this will be shown here. As you can see, it went all the way to 4 times 4, but not 5 times 5. So this was it for for loops, and next I'm going to show you our while loops. So I'm just going to remove this, or actually comment it out. And I'm going to say while, let's actually create a new variable here and say, call it n is equal to, I don't know, let's say 0. And let's say while n is under 10, printer n, and then come here and say plus or equal to 1. So let me explain to you what a while loop is and what it does. A while loop simply allows you to run a particular code over and over again until the condition is no longer true or no longer valid. So right now, this condition says n is smaller than 10, and n is equal to 0, which means that this is true. But notice how here I said n plus equal 1, and what this is equivalent to, pretty much it's like saying n is equal to n plus 1. I don't know where that came from. There we go. Right, so every time this is going to run, we're going to add 1 to n. So first time this runs, it's going to be 0, and then we're going to add 1 to it, so it's going to be 1, and it's going to keep getting added until it reaches 10. And when it reaches 10, this while loop will stop running. So let's see how this works. I'm going to run it, and as you can see, it went from 0 to 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 9. And as soon as it reached a value of 10, it actually stopped running. Now imagine how many things you can use this by. For example, let's say we're creating a hangman game, and if you haven't seen that yet, check out my Python list where I create a hangman game. And let's say you want your user to have 3 lives, for example. All we're gonna do is come here and say 3. Sorry, what am I doing? I'm gonna say n. Alright, so what we're actually, I'm gonna put equal to. So all I did here is said n is equal to 3, and as long as n is not equal to 3, run this. So I can say, I can say print you have n lives left, and then I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna say n is minus equal to 1. And right now this code will keep running because n right now is greater than 0. So it will run once, and then it's gonna minus 1. So this is going to be 2. It's gonna run again, and it's going to be 1. It's going to run again, and then it's going to reach 0, and this is when it's gonna stop. So let's see if that will work or not by running play. And as you can see, it said you have 3 lives left, you have 2 lives left, you have 1 lives left, and then it stops running. So again, this was it for while loops. You can actually, in order to use this at its like full capacity, you need to use a combination of if, for, and while loops, and I will definitely be creating more examples and more tutorials on how to do that. I actually created some, I think, tutorials on how you can use all 3 of them together. So I'll link those in the description, and make sure you go and have a look for a better understanding. Other than that, have a good day, and thank you for watching. Have a good day.